CJ, your favorite scuba diver, here with Deep South Divers. We are doing an inspection for the 71-foot privately owned motor yacht called UNDAUNTED. That's one of her many zincs right there. And I'm checking out her an intake for the cutlass bearing. That keeps the cutlass bearing cool. This is her propeller. She only has one big single on her. Big, beautiful prop. Pretty dirty. You can see there's quite a bit of marine fouling on the prop, and for that matter on the rest of the boat as well. But I'm really interested in any permanent damage. So I'm checking those blades for any dents or dings. Anything that would make it not spin true and smooth. And right there I kind of feel a little bit of a snag. Nope, just a barnacle. You can see here those prop tips, which that's usually where the damage occurs, is right at the tips. I'm checking the tightness of the prop on the shaft, and it is tight. No movement at all. But those tips are usually what get damaged first. So I'm inspecting those real hard. And there is no damage at all on those props, or on that prop. I'll go ahead and move back on the rudder shoe. The end of the rudder shoe is a rudder cup, and the rudder spins inside of that rudder cup. That rudder cup basically supports the weight of this rudder. Let's look at the top of the rudder where the rudder shaft enters the bottom of the boat. No damage. That looks really great too. There is a hole in the bottom half of the rudder aft, the aftmost point. That is by design. And I'm going to check out this rudder's zinc right there. About 80% remaining. In fact, all of the zincs, with the exception of one, look to be in that kind of shape. You can see there's bolts holding those on, which is much easier to change out than the weld-on type. But I'll give the rudder a shake, make sure that she has the proper amount of play in it, and it does. There should be just a couple of inches that you can move that rudder by hand. And in fact, that is the case. I'm real happy with the way that rudder looks, the way that the rudder shoe and the rudder shaft fit together. Excellent. We'll move forward on that shoe a little bit. Prop is tight, undamaged. All of this area here looks to be in great condition. So let's move aft and go to the stern thruster. That's also a common area of damage. That's pretty filthy. There's quite a bit of growth on the bottom of this boat. Let's see if we can get a little bit better view on the other side. And we do. We can see kind of in there. You can see the props. The stern thruster props are in great shape. Now in the center of that prop, there is a zinc for the propeller. I'm used to seeing zincs that are whitish or silverish, and this one is looks like kind of a dark brown, maybe a rust color, which is a little bit weird. Not really sure why that is, but they're there and they're tight, and the props are clean and they can spin just fine. Not sure if you can see in there or not. I'll come over here to the other side and take a look at the other prop. Make sure that it spins properly and that zinc is tight, and it is, and it does. So aside from being full of marine fouling, it's in pretty good shape. I'm real happy with that. I don't see any reason why that won't function as planned. So we'll move forward on the vessel. There's that rudder shoe again. That's right where the rudder shoe meets the keel. And there is the starboard intake for the cutlass bearing. Make sure that is clean and clear, and it is enough anyway. And right there is where the water spits out, right between the end of the cutlass bearing and the end of the shaft tube and the front of the prop, the front of the hub of the prop. And that's clean and clear. There seems to be a like a bar here that maybe helps keep that area clear. Kind of a cool design. Yeah, a little bit dirty, not too bad. The barnacles, it's a hard growth that we really have to be concerned about. Barnacles and oysters, and there's just some baby, barnacles growing here and there. A lot of soft growth. But we'll go ahead and move forward on the keel. And I've got some weird paint issues here. It looks like to me that maybe the vessel was originally had like a aqua green bottom paint and was later painted red. I've moved all the way forward here to another interesting feature about this vessel, and that is the bulbous bow. You can see at the top center of your screen there, that is the bow. And there's actually a rather large cigar-shaped bulb that sticks out front to help break waves and produce a smoother ride for the passengers. That right there is the guard for the bow thruster. I'm going to stick my hands in there and inspect that and look and make sure there's no crabs or toadfish or anything that could cause me some issues. Can't hardly see anything up in there. But once I can establish that it's clear, I'm trying to show it to the camera, but it's just nothing but dust coming out of there. Let's go over to the starboard side. There's the guard. I'll try to clean it up for you so you can see. Not really having a whole lot of luck with that. So there's two props, one on each side, and they counter-rotate on a gearing system for the bow thruster. So I want to make sure that I can reach in there and spin the blades, and that they do in fact counter-rotate. That's me spinning them, you can hear it. And they do counter-rotate on their gearing system properly. Now, this is the only area where there was a zinc that was, maybe 50% or less, and that is on the bow thruster. The bow thruster zincs, there's a button in the center of the prop on each side, and they were loose and the expected whitish, silverish color. I don't think that those zincs were anything to be concerned about, but they are loose on there, and there's only about 30% remaining, something like that. But you can see all these hull zincs that I keep coming across, these bar zincs. They are bolted to the bottom of the vessel. They're in great shape, 80% or better. Now this area of the hull here has pretty good paint, kind of a dust, well, except for a couple of spots, I guess. Kind of a dusting of marine fouling. Every once in a while I come across a through hull like this where there's a concentration of marine fouling. Yeah, now I'm not sure what what that feature is. It's a sensor or an intake or a discharge through hull. Another zinc in great shape. Another through hull there. They're kind of coated up in some fouling. You know, in the grand scheme of things, this is really not too bad. There's a through hull that is shaped like a shower drain. It's a large round plate with holes drilled in it. You can see that there. Just kind of wipe the stuff off. And this right here is probably the vessel's largest underwater feature. That is a keel cooler. It acts like a radiator, so the engine pumps coolant through that keel cooler, which radiates heat into the surrounding water, and it pumps cool water back to the engine to keep the engine cool. That's in really great shape. Hardly fouled at all. Clearly it's doing a good job. Another zinc there. Lots and lots of zincs on this boat. The whole boat is a steel-hulled vessel, so needs lots of zincs. Now this right here is the starboard side, active stabilizer. This will rotate back and forth like the rudder does in order to stabilize the vessel in seas and in waves and that kind of stuff. I want to run my hand across the top, make sure that there's nothing that will prevent this thing from spinning. It is parked in a forward position, which was part of the question too. We wanted to make sure that they were parked properly, and they are. More through hulls and zincs. Now, occasionally you'll see a seam, a weld in the bottom of the vessel, and so I'm sort of checking for seams. It's tough to tell whether they are original manufacturer's seams or if those seams are aftermarket repairs. For example, if they installed those active stabilizers after the vessel was manufactured, then it would make sense that there would be welded seams. This right here is a large through hull of some sort. I'm not sure if it's a sensor or an intake or what, but it's fouled up, pretty bad. That's something that kind of needs to be cleaned up. Now, I don't see any damage, and I'll revisit those seams here in a second, but the vessel looks like it's in real good shape, with the exception of the bottom paint. The bottom paint's, she's due for bottom paint. This through hull here, real simple one, nice and clean. And of course we're back here by the prop again. We're at the stern of the vessel one more time. All in all, I swam this vessel back and forth probably 6 or 8 times, each time making a slightly different pass to make sure that I didn't find anything that was extraordinarily concerning. Now I'm going to go and check out those seams a little bit more. So I'm going down the port side here of the vessel, and I'm feeling for manufacturer's seams, right? These are places where the steel plates that make up the hull were welded together. And what's interesting is that I'm not really finding any. I'm finding zincs and that kind of stuff. I'm feeling more than I'm looking. There's not a whole lot you can see. But I'm looking for seams. And the ones on the port side seem to be rather flush and not very obvious. The ones on the starboard side appear to be more obvious, and that may hint that the vessel was repaired later on, which was one of the things that the client had specifically asked me to inspect for. If so, if it was repaired, they did a really fine job. Because I can't tell if these seams are factory or not. Little fish there running around. This is port side of the vessel. You're seeing, I'm looking up and you're seeing the dock that the vessel is docked up to. So as I'm moving along here, I'm going to bump into the port side stabilizer right there, which I have not yet inspected. So let me run my fingers across the top there and make sure that she is capable of movement. And note that she is in fact parked in a forward position, which is great. That's exactly how she should be, to make sure that it doesn't cause the vessel undue inefficiency. You see there, the stabilizer is able to move quite nicely, and you know, just like the rest of the hull is rather dirty, but you see some barnacle patch there. And that is the end of the shaft where the you know, that the stabilizer can rotate on. It's clean, it's clear. I should say it's clean enough. It's clear. Could use a bottom cleaning, but here I'm going to focus a little bit more on the paint issue, and maybe check out some of those seams too. See that? That's a seam. And if it was a later repair, they did a good job, because it's difficult to tell. You can see right there on the chine, right on your left where my hand is the bottom of the vessel. On the right is the side of the vessel, so that's called the chine or spray chine. And you can see there's kind of a double seam there. And I'm not sure if that's OEM or if that's a repair or what, but if it is a repair, then they did a nice job. See kind of a seam there, it's a weld. But I'm going to feel on the bottom here for more seams and see what I come up with. Very difficult to tell whether or not that's an aftermarket repair, or possibly it could have been a hole that was cut so that they could install those stabilizers, and or the bow thruster, and then they put a patch back on it and welded that in place. So there's a bunch of reasons why there would be seams there. Not all of them would be particularly alarming. So here I'm at the bulbous bow. I'm at the very keel of the vessel. That's the very center line. Moving aft, and you can see there's a big sensor there, just on the port side of the keel. That is a depth sensor, a depth finder, a transducer they call it, and that is a great place for it by design. That is as far forward on the vessel as is possible, which means that the captain is going to be alerted to his depth before his vessel is on it, you know, is in that shallow water. So that's a really good spot for it. So once again, we're cruising along the keel, the very center point of the vessel, that is the deepest point of the vessel. This is the place where if the captain goes through shallower water, this is the place that touches down first. I'll stop and check my gauges there. And so therefore there's going to be paint is going to be thinnest and worn off first right here. And you can see that there's quite a bit of red missing. The green, the original green, is showing through. There's places here where there's no red at all. So paint is definitely lacking on this vessel. Nothing to be particularly concerned about, but it is something that should be done sometime in the near future. So the keel gets narrower as we get back here to the rudder shoe, and the keel itself ends right about there. The rudder shoe continues. See the prop directly above, and the rudder shoe, the rudder shoe goes back to the rudder cup. Let me look some more at this prop. I've kind of cleaned it off a little bit, and you see I've got the small nut in front of the big nut on that prop, and threaded and drilled prop hub for removal of the prop, so that's kind of nice. There's a constant debate amongst boaters as to whether or not the little nut should be installed first or last. The position of the little nut versus the big nut. And the designers say that the little nut should go on first, the big nut should go on second, which is exactly how this boat is. And that means that it's done according to specs. So I've got the shaft tube there, the shaft, the prop, correctly placed nuts, and interestingly some seams right there above the prop as well. Now I'm going to focus a little bit more on this paint. You see here I've got 3 different colors. I've got a bright red, I've got a dark red, and I've got a green color. Right? I think the green was the original. 1, 2, and 3. 3 different colors. I think the green was the original, and it was painted bright red later, and then perhaps this dark red was a touch-up? I don't know. But all 3 paints are pretty thin, kind of worn out, and ready for a new paint job. That's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.